From Tally to Cali,
it's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.
One more Corner Pocket.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What is up? It is Wake Up Warchant. It is presented by the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill in Tallahassee, Florida. It is Thursday. What's going on Thursday at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill? Corey Clark.
Bingo.
Yeah. That is right. Bingo night at the Corner Pocket starts at 7 o'clock. Win money, meet friends, libations, all that good stuff going on over the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source. Thumbs up on the YouTube, 5-star rating and review, especially because we have Irish O'Fell on the road, quite literally joining us on his sojourn back from Amelia Island, been posted up there all week long. Ira, I guess probably be easier if I ask you questions, but there's just so much to go over. So how about what caught your ear? What do you think as the managing editor? What was the big sort of headline from Wednesday's session at ACC media meetings, or rather ACC meetings, I'm sorry.
Well, they are going to continue till tomorrow. But I was like, you know what? I'm done here. I've seen all I need to see.
All right.
Actually, the commissioner, Jim Phillips, spoke to the media today at the end of today's sessions, or excuse me, at the end of Wednesday's session.
There you go.
And so I decided to go ahead and pack it in. There's a little bit more that's going on today on Thursday, but I went ahead and head back because basically all the major stuff was done. Probably the two or three biggest things were one thing we've been talking about all week was scheduling and whether or not they would change the football schedule from the current format with divisions to a different format where you would guarantee playing everybody in the conference at least every 4 years. And they didn't make a final decision on that. They're basically, I think he feels like he's gotten enough buy-in from the athletic directors. The football coaches are split down the middle. There is not a consensus among the football coaches that they should make this change. But the ADs have enough consensus that they're going to go ahead and move forward with it. But I think what they want is some sort of sign from the ESPN that if we do this, because the premise of it is, one, there'll be more variety of scheduling. You'll get to play everybody in the conference. Two, they think they can kind of coordinate some better matchups, some more high profile matchups, which should help in terms of the TV inventory. And then the third thing is making sure your two best teams play for the conference championship as opposed to, the years where FSU and Clemson were the two best teams in the conference, but they didn't play in the conference championship games. So, but I think they want some sort of assurance from ESPN that that's going to result in more money. If ESPN says, okay, that sounds good, that sounds fine, but we're not going to pay you any extra money for it, I don't know that they're going to do it. I think they want to hear that from ESPN, so it's probably going to come within the next couple of weeks before they get a final decision. My guess is they're going to go through with that. I don't think he would have done this if he didn't think they could get more money, but it's not official yet that they're going to make that change.
It's quid pro quo, though. I mean, if ESPN's like, yeah, thanks, but we just don't see much more of an incentive to up this contract, but do you think they'll stand pat just to almost spite ESPN, or will they still go through with it?
It's hard to tell. I mean, I think some of the people are kind of like Mike Norvell is a perfect example, and he's not like in total favor of changing. But if you're going to give us some more money to change, and you're going to guarantee us better TV spots, because that's part of it too. Their concern is if they don't improve. I think some of the conversations with ESPN about like times for games, kickoff times, and what networks games go on, a lot of that's based on the matchups. And so they're trying to come up with the best matchups possible so they can get the better TV slots and also get more money. And, again, so Mike Norvell's kind of approach is, I'm fine changing it if they're going to guarantee us they're going to give us better time slots and better money. If they're not, then I don't think we need to change it just to change. He likes the idea of having divisions because you have a chance to be a division champion. I do think if ESPN says we're not going to give you any more money for this, then my guess is they may stick with what they're doing.
I hope Mike understands that nobody listening to this show and not one person that's ever sat foot in Doak Campbell Stadium cares one iota about the 2010 Atlantic Division title. Not one person. Coaches might, because I assume there's some stuff in the contract. If you win the Atlantic Division, you get this. but no fans of a real program care about division titles.
I don't think he thinks fans do. I think he thinks more from a team standpoint. And I think there was some conversation today that I think, did Pitt win their Coastal a few years ago?
Pitt won this past season.
Yeah,
the reigning...
I know. But did they I think Narduzzi said something along the lines of, when the first time they won the division, that was a big thing for the team internally and kind of helped them. There's a lot. My head's spinning, man. I've been talking to conference ADs and coaches for 3 or 4 days, and I can't remember who it was. I think it was Narduzzi, but one of them said that when they won the division, it was a big deal inside the program. So I guess
I think it was
2018,
right?
2018.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Clemson beat them. Yeah.
Yep, correct. Attaboy, Ira.
So internally, he said in the team, it was a good moment for the players to feel like they accomplished something. So there you go,
right.
Corey.
Okay, great. Perfect.
The other big topic, and we'll be writing about it. I wrote a big story about the scheduling. People can read at warchant.com. We'll also be writing about the revenue gap, which was another big topic that came up today. Not came up today. It was just, hey, we're talking to the ACC commissioner. We have to ask him about what are you doing about the revenue gap?
Yeah.
And, as we said, the scheduling, that's one part of it. I guess my assumption, or basically kind of recapping what he said is, look, the gap between the ACC and the SEC and the Big Ten is so enormous now. I mean, we're talking about in the years to come when the SEC and Big Ten renegotiate their contracts, you're going to be talking about, what's the difference, Corey? 40 million a year per team, 50 million, 50 million a year.
By
per
2026, it'd be $50 million a year.
It's such a massive amount of money that literally, like, I asked several ADs, I asked several coaches, and I asked Jim Phillips about it. And basically the answer, the big picture answer for most of them is, well, we got to control what we can control.
Control controllables.
Perfect.
Like it.
So they're trying to take an approach of finding a bunch of different ways to add some revenue. But in terms of like a plan to really close the gap, I mean, there's only so much they can do. And I think that's the bottom line is, what can they do? These are the teams they have. ESPN, even if the grant, everybody is tied to the grant of rights. Oh, we've got this grant of rights that goes till 2036, and that's why we're screwed. I mean, say the grant of rights went away tomorrow, and but the league stayed together.
Yeah.
On the open market, are they going to get any more money than they're getting now?
No, the value. Where is the value in this conference, football wise?
Right. It's not just because the teams aren't very good. It's also the size of the fan bases, the size of the stadiums, the size of the alumni bases. It's just, even Clemson, like Clemson's the big power in the ACC right now. It's a small public school. For a public school, it's not a big public school. This conference does not have those big 50, 60,000 student, but Florida State's as big as it gets. So it's, I guess my point is, they have some ideas. They mentioned some things. They're going to hire a new chief revenue director or chief revenue officer or something, right, whose job it is to try to raise some revenue. But, at the end of the day, I mean, what are we talking about here? All of it's just drops in the bucket. And, that's not changing until something just cataclysmic changes in the sport overall.
And think about this, like it's $50 million per school, and each conference has 14 teams, right?
Right.
Essentially. So that means, folks, for the lay person, the SEC will be making $700 million more than the ACC in one calendar year on the TV revenue. $700 million. That's, I mean, whatever, man. This is a great sport. I'm fired up about it. Fired up about the direction of it. And $700 million. How do you? So in 3 years, they're going to make $2.1 billion more than the ACC, and not more just than the ACC. They're going to make more than they're going to make more than that against the Big 12. They're going to make more than the Pac-12. Like, it's the similar numbers, and it's just it's crushing the sport. And yeah, sure, cool, man. It's awesome that Vanderbilt is going to make, over the course of 4 years, will make $200 million more from football than Florida State and Clemson.
And if they're, look, the one thing he did talk about in terms of talking about changing the sport from a big picture standpoint was, Jim Phillips did say that, he thinks they really need to look long and hard right now at maybe having football be governed totally separately from the other sports. Like take football and have it, I think Gene Smith at Ohio State, I guess, threw this out there last week, that the idea that the college football playoff would oversee college football in the FBS, and then the NCAA would oversee everything else. And Jim Phillips threw out the same thing today. And so my guess is that's not a coincidence. My guess is these guys have all kind of talked about it, and this is the way they want to go. But just doing that, just moving football under a different governing structure, I don't think would change it wouldn't do anything to change the television contracts, unless they completely blew it all up in terms of the conferences and the complete television schedule and how it all works and the whole structure. I don't think just doing that, but maybe that's a first step towards that goal. But look, at the end of the day, something cataclysmic's got to happen, or you're just going to have this situation where the haves and have-nots are almost like two separate different leagues.
What bothers me about it, though, Ira, is most of the teams in the SEC have always been and will continue to be have-nots. They have accomplished nothing. The Mississippi schools have done zilch.
Right.
Tennessee hasn't done anything in 25 years. Vanderbilt has never done anything. Neither has Kentucky. And yet they
Missouri.
get to suck on the teat of Alabama, Florida, and Georgia. And it's like, what have they earned? How have they earned $200 million more than Florida State and Clemson in the span of 4 years? I mean, that's what's so bothersome. And A&M, A&M hasn't done anything. Now, Texas and Oklahoma in particular, but Texas and Oklahoma have, but they're not in the conference yet.
But I would say
it's like LSU, Bama, Georgia, and Florida. That's it for the last 20 years of that league that have accomplished anything. And yet they're all making obscene money.
Well, one thing I would say, and this is where, whether it's marketing, whether it's, whatever perceived esteem, whatever it is, just thinking about the scheduling thing when the conversation today about, what ESPN is going to give them, the ACC, for changing the schedule. At the end of the day, whether Florida State is playing Syracuse or whether Florida State's playing Pitt or Florida State's playing Virginia Tech, I mean, at this current moment, are any of those huge? I mean, Florida State's a big draw, but any of those a marquee draw that television says we have to have? Whereas some of the schools in the SEC that aren't even super successful, for whatever reason, seem to have a draw for television and seem to have a draw for ESPN and seem to be worth that extra money. So I just think, even if the football gets better in the ACC, which it needs to, I still don't know if these schools are going to be anywhere near as valuable.
Well, just because they're not football schools,
right?
They don't pack 100,000 seat stadiums like 7 teams in that conference do. So yeah, I mean, that has been since the early 90s when Florida State joined the league, been an issue and a problem, and it remains that way. Nothing has really changed. Wake Forest fans still have their hill. NC State still has their state fair. Like there's not a lot there. There's not a lot there from a fan base perspective that's worth anything.
Other than that, though, State of the Union, okay, the ACC.
Right. Sure.
Well, they did, and again, that's the thing, like talking to the ADs, they all believe in Jim Phillips. They're all fired up about Jim Phillips. They think that, look, he is getting some stuff done, man. They've been talking about, people have been asking them to do something about the scheduling for years and years and years. And here, the first time they meet in person, it looks like it's going to change. So I do think he's got some ability to get things done. He is on that NCAA transformation committee. He's at the big boy table with all the powers that be across the sport. So I think that helps for, the ACC's case. And a lot of the ADs seem excited about, what he might be able to do for them. But at the end of the day, I just don't know how much he could do right now. Otherwise, not a ton otherwise in terms of news out of the conference. I think he did talk about he kind of, one thing that nobody really caught on to, he did say he thinks the college football playoff is going to expand, and everybody knows he was the guy that kind of spearheaded the vote to shut it down, at least right now. He did say that he expects that to go forward pretty soon. So it sounds like that's closer to fruition, expanding it. I don't know if it's to 8 teams or 12 teams. but it sounds like that's going to happen. And, there were some other notes. I mean, I recapped all on our message boards. People can find it on the Tribal Council, some of the other news and notes.
I just wonder if, I thought the playoff delay was a little bit of gamesmanship, trying to leverage some stuff. But, man, if they're just going to be so beholden to ESPN, I mean, is this whatever happened to the alliance, right? Whatever happened to the alliance between the ACC and the Pac-12 and the Big Ten, and we're going to kind of try to keep the wolves at the gates. I don't know, maybe just because it's ACC meetings and all the spotlight's on us right now. Just feels like the cavalry is not coming and there's just not a lot of answers to really big problems and questions.
Yeah, and if there are, they're not sharing them. And again, like I said, it was just funny because I asked several different administrators about, closing the revenue gap and those types of topics, and the controlling what we control was said by at least three of them, which makes me think that was kind of, this is what you're going to say when people ask you that question. And, they just don't have any answers right now. Maybe there are some coming down the road, but I don't think there are any right now.
What's odd to me, Ira, is that why isn't Phillips or other ADs in the ACC, why aren't they as apoplectic? I know I didn't say that well.
Apoplectic,
as I am publicly about this revenue gap. And why wouldn't they all be screaming from the mountains, basically at ESPN? Like, ESPN, you are ruining the sport. This is incredible. You want us all to be on the same field, same playing field, and you've tilted it almost to a 90-degree angle in the favor of two conferences because of, the one conference with the SEC in particular, because of these TV deals. Like, don't you want a better product? Don't you want a more competitive national landscape? Why wouldn't that be the talking point instead of just kind of kowtowing to ESPN and being, let's just control what we control. Let's not talk about it that much. It's like, why isn't anybody that matters, because I don't matter, why doesn't anybody, that's when you guys are supposed to say, yeah, you do, Corey.
Yeah,
you matter a lot, Corey.
Thanks. Yeah. Hey, Ira, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Why aren't they screaming from the mountaintops like what this is doing? Why they have to know it. Why wouldn't they? Yeah. What's the harm?
I just think it's being a good corporate partner. I mean, I just think that's what it is. I mean, look, you could look at, here's a perfect example. David Coburn, who was Florida State's previous athletic director, when I did that Q&A with him a couple months ago, after he retired, he said, look, we're going to have, the revenue gap is real, and we're going to have to face the fact that we may become a school where we bring along up and coming coaches, we hire them on the way up, and it's going to be really hard for us to keep them, because, we may not be able to pay what these other conferences can pay. And now he said that as the retired athletic director of Florida State. I don't think he would have as the current athletic director of Florida State. I mean, I just don't think they want to put it all on ESPN. But no, I mean, it's a valid question. But it's funny because it's the elephant in the room. One of the other big topics in basketball, the big topic in basketball on the men's and women's side was why isn't the ACC getting enough respect when it comes to the tournament, when it comes to selections in the tournament and just perceptions this past season, because, obviously the ACC was dogged all year in men's basketball, didn't get a lot of bids. Then they ended up having a great run in the NCAA tournament. And the women's side, I think, had some similar concerns. Well, to me, the elephant in the room is, ESPN is got a much bigger financial stake in the SEC than they do in the ACC. Now, maybe that's not why. Maybe that's not why it is, but it seems like that's an obvious answer in terms of when you talk about how the league, because look, they set the narrative. What they talk about is a lot of times what everybody else follows along with. So, but nobody ever they've talked about all the different theories of why this is and why it's a problem and what the ACC needs to do better. And one of the things they talked about was we need to do more in terms of access. One of the athletic directors was saying, we need to do more in terms of, or it might have been Mike Bray, actually. We need to do more in terms of access so that ESPN will come in and do more coverage of our programs and our kids, and then that'll be better for the prestige. And it's like, okay, but how much of it is the fact that they have a stronger relationship, with the SEC, a bigger financial, stronger relationship? Is that, or is that not a factor? But nobody would even bring it up because, they don't want to, I'm sure, antagonize ESPN.
Hey, man, SEC Network has their own studio in Charlotte. Like, ACC Network's just a wing in Bristol. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we let you go, Ira?
No, that's good, man. It was glad to be heading back, and and again, I don't know that people that read our coverage are probably not going to feel a whole lot better about the ACC's future because they just don't have any answers for where it is. But it's I do think there's going to be change long term. I just don't think it's going to be imminent, and until that happens, this is what it is.
We love you, Ira.
Thanks, guys.
Yo, you hear that? That's the sound of the hottest new club, the Zaxby's Signature Club Sandwich. It's everything you love about our original sandwich, but, clubbier. Hand-breaded chicken, bacon, and cheese, and your choice of Zax sauce or spicy Zax sauce. Try one today with fries and a drink. Only at Zaxby's. Can we turn it down now?
And don't forget to listen in for the Zaxby's indescribably good Player of the Week every Monday on Wake Up Warchant.
Thanks again to our managing editor, Ira Schofel, for joining us from Amelia Island. He's been out there all week. Give some love to 5-Star Schofel. Follow him on Twitter, Ira Schofel, all one word. You all know how to spell Schofel. That's an easy one to spell, right, Corey? Sound it out.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get on the ponies, Corey. Let's go to S. Quinn, 67, class of 93. Wake up! The dual personality baseball team has started the week strong with a midweek sweep. What are the odds? I'm looking forward to catching the ACC tournament in Charlotte again this year. Now, I know Corey isn't into giving Ira any praise, but we do appreciate him grinding it out on an island resort. I hope he survives that horrific experience. 5-star effort. Well, is he actually on the island? I think he might be helping out the bottom line of the company, staying off the island.
He's definitely not staying. Yeah, he's definitely not at the Ritz. Right. I don't know where he ended up staying. I know when I stayed there a few years ago when I went, I did not stay at the Ritz either. I think I was working the Democrat at the time, but I stayed at a resort, not a resort. It was a motel on the beach, but it was nice enough. Weren't a ton of options, but I did stay on the island, so hopefully Ira's on the island and not in like Jacksonville.
You realize you've been working for warchant.com for over 4 years now, right, Corey? You can't say a couple years ago and talk about your Democrat days, because a couple years ago you were covering Willie Taggart for warchant.com.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I've only been over there to that thing once, and I can't remember. If it was 4 or 5 years ago or 2 years ago. But apologies, everyone.
I think it's Ira's.
My memory isn't what it used to be.
My question for the week is this from S. Quinn 67. In each of your opinions, what is the best non-football Seminole athletic moment? By the way, I have not been to the Dungeon in New Orleans since the 90s. If I remember correctly, it does not open till midnight, and you have to access it through a very narrow alley. Oh, boy.
That sounds like our place, doesn't it? That's going to be our spot. I'm going to post up there every night around 12:01.
Fly the flag. Fly the Warchant flag. All right, Corey, what do you think is the best non-football Seminole athletic moment?
Well, that's a one that resonates the most. I'm trying to think. That's a tough one. It's a good question. Yeah. Like you could point to like, the track championships, I guess, but I don't know how many people were dialed in on that. The Jessica Warren catch is an all-timer. That's the first thing that came to mind. Because it helped them win a College World Series out there. But there's other ones. McDougal with the 6 home runs and 16 RBIs, that lives forever. Yeah. J.D. Drew's walk-off out in Omaha. Yeah, man, there's a lot of them. What do you got? There's got to be one that I'm not thinking of that's like easy to think of.
And this is when you wish you had this. You were hosting the show with Jeff or Gene because they have that wealth of knowledge they could pull into. Yeah, I mean, I almost want to go all John Clark lawyery and be like, well, what does best mean? Is it the most impressive? Is it like an emotional thing? Is it nationally most relevant and the kind of defining moment for the school? But, I mean, just in terms of like best athletic moment, like feat, it has to be Marshall McDougal. Like six jacks in one game, even with those bats, that's ridiculous. I mean, that is crazy beyond all comprehension.
I could also say like maybe the snare shot against Duke. only because of what that team ended up doing and winning or maybe just winning the ACC championship in general that year. I mean, the teams they beat to win that thing. But those snare shots will always resonate forever too. I mean, he hit 5 game winners, like literally in the last 3 seconds in his last 2 years at Florida State. But the one against Duke was an all-timer and his first one. So maybe that. There's been a lot of really good ones, man. There's been some great ones. Jessica Warren, like I said, Jessie Warren, that helped win them a national championship, and that was the most recent of the ones we're discussing. And then I would also say, I know it's recency bias, but that 2020 basketball team, pick a moment. The Patrick Williams dunk against Louisville, Trent Forrest dunk against Louisville. I think when I think of those moments and that team, that team will always have a special place in Florida State fans' memories because, number one, of how good it was, but then it never really got a chance to see what it could do in the postseason. But it had a legitimate chance to do some real damage and maybe go to the Final Four and beyond. Well, you can't go beyond the Final Four. You know what I mean? Right. Get to the championship game. But that moment, that game, I think, is the complete encompasses that team perfectly. And those two plays, specifically the Forrest dunk over Nwora, is an all-time moment. And one I'll never forget, just as loud as that crowd was, that was insanity.
What about Dougie Minkiewicz squeezing the final out in the World Series to give the Sox their first World Series in however many years?
Get out of here.
Okay.
I'd say Buster before that, only because I don't like the Red Sox. Nothing against Dougie Bats, but Buster too. I mean, golly, they've had so many good athletes, great athletes in all these other sports, but the ones that I just feel like it had to be like on national television. It had to be something that most Florida State fans were watching and appreciating in the moment, and that's what comes back to like Jessie Warren or those basketball moments. Because as great as the
Marshall
McDougal thing was, who was watching the Florida State Maryland game? Not many folks.
Like, would you know the difference of whether that game was being played at Tuesday at 3 p.m. or if it was a Saturday, 5 o'clock game, like in the middle of an important series, or if it's a midweek game, like it just doesn't. There's no sort of majestic look to it. It's just very nondescript baseball ballpark game.
Yeah, in Maryland, it was at Maryland. The game was 26-2. But I mean, look, man, if you're talking about the most incredible feat that's ever been accomplished by a Florida State athlete ever in anything, that's it, and it's never going to be beaten. I don't know what could beat it. Matthew Cleveland scoring 80 in a game, like I don't know what would beat 6 home runs and 16 RBIs in one college baseball game against Division I pitching. Like they weren't playing Thomas College or Thomas University now. I mean, it was Division I pitching. It was an ACC school. And he hit 6 home runs. That's nuts. Anyway.
True story. I don't know if I'm blowing his cover, but I think Ira actually volunteered as a coach at Thomas University for a stint. Hoops program.
He did, yeah. I was in Thomasville when he did it. Yeah. He was because he had a connection. He was good friends with one of the assistant coaches at the time. And he actually did. So did Jim Lamar.
Small world.
Yeah. Yep.
Looking forward to all the replies to this one, correcting us and telling us exactly what the best non-football.
There's got to be one we've missed. We're not thinking of.
JT Noles 2K2, wake up. Hope you guys are doing awesome. Thank you, JT. You as well. If the ACC eliminates divisions and we have to play 3 common opponents, who would your pick be? I feel like Clemson, Miami are obvious, but who would you pick to be that final choice? I would probably go with the majority opinion and say Georgia Tech. It's not that far to travel. It's the only college within 5 hours of Florida State. That's in the conference. And I think it also helps that currently they're not that good. So at least we can get a win against them.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I was interested in Corey's point about the ratings regarding a rematch between Florida State and Clemson in 2013 for the ACC championship or Louisville-Clemson in 2016. If that system was in place, would FSU still have 4 ACC championships since the invention of the ACC championship game? Thanks for answering my questions. Support the sponsors and the players with merchandise or YouTube accounts. I hope Corey can find help for his stomach troubles. And last but not least, go Noles.
Yeah, I think Georgia Tech, and I appreciate it. We're working on the stomach. Hopefully it'll be remedied by this time next week. But I would say, Georgia Tech to me, Georgia Tech or Louisville are the two that I would vote for. I mean, Georgia Tech, selfishly, I live very close. When I'm up in Georgia, I live very close to Georgia. No, not very close. I'm an hour away because of Atlanta traffic. But I'm closer to Clemson. It's probably easier for me to get to a Clemson Florida State baseball game than it is a Georgia Tech Florida State baseball game. But that's neither here nor there. I just think it's better for the fan base to have that third one be Georgia Tech, because it's so you can travel to it, and there are so many Florida State fans in Atlanta, and it gives them, like, I don't know, you've been to a Georgia Tech Florida State game in Atlanta, haven't you?
Yeah, I was there in 15. I was there for that.
It was a tough one. It was a tough one.
Correct.
But it's almost like a bowl game. I mean, it is very neutral. There are more Georgia Tech fans, but it's like 60-40. Especially if Georgia Tech isn't any good. And if you guys remember, that Georgia Tech team sucked. Yeah. That was their only ACC win of the season. So it was very easy to Florida State fans who were undefeated at the time to get tickets, and it was like half and half, just like it was really in 2008 when the Marcus Sims game. Couple tough losses the last two times they've been at Grant Field. But I just think that's a natural to me. I would hate for the third one to be anything but Louisville or Georgia Tech. Louisville, because it's a cool city. It's also a fan base that cares, and that's fun. I'd rather have that than I don't know, North Carolina, Wake Forest, name another one, BC,
NC
Virginia.
State? What about NC State?
I mean, at some point, but I also think he makes a good point about, and I brought this up on headlines, like, so we know it's going to be Miami and Clemson. Well, those are always going to be tough games. Does Florida State does their third one have to be a really tough game too every year? We just want to guarantee that? Is that the whole deal? Like, give them the three toughest opponents? Like, make it Virginia Tech or NC State every year? Not that Florida State should be afraid of those schools, and they shouldn't be, but like, it'd be nice to have a Duke on there. You're making us play. You're making Florida State play Miami and Clemson every year. Well, throw in a Duke or a Georgia Tech. That'd be nice. And I just think Georgia Tech seems like a natural, perfect geographic fit.
Amen. How about the second part, though? So if they do go away with divisions, they would ultimately pick the top two teams to play each other in the conference championship game. So I've got the 16 standings in front of me. So 16 was Clemson and Virginia Tech, despite the fact that Virginia Tech went 6-2 in conference, and Louisville was 7-1. So that would have been a rematch of Clemson-Louisville. And he asks whether or not would Florida State still have 4 ACC titles if they would have gone to this since the invention of the ACC championship game.
So I guess he's asking about 2012 too, and 14, because I think in 14 they would have had to play Clemson again instead of Georgia Tech. Yeah. I don't think they were going to lose to Clemson. I mean, they beat Clemson that year without Jameis.
Yeah, agreed.
So I think with Jameis in a championship game to get into the playoff, I think you're still beating that Clemson team as good as Deshaun Watson was by the end of the year. But yeah, I mean, heck, that game against Georgia Tech wasn't easy. They gave up whatever there was like
35 or 28.
Yeah, I think it was like 41-35 or something.
Yeah, something.
I mean, look, man, you think about if Florida State and Clemson, again, I think Florida State beats Clemson again in 13. But that Florida State Duke game was a joke. Mm-hmm. It was just a joke. The Clemson was one of the 4 best teams in the country that year. And Florida State, instead of having to play them again, which, hey, we're all happy about, I guess, it guaranteed a trip to LA and an eventual national championship. But instead of having to play that team again, then you had to go, and then that game becomes a de facto, you win and you're in, perhaps. And instead of that happening, it becomes Florida State and Duke, and that thing was over when the buses got to the stadium. And then that Louisville Clemson game, that Louisville Clemson game, if it would have been played that weekend, championship weekend, Lamar Jackson just getting ready to win the Heisman after that game they had in Death Valley, that would have been one of the all-time highest viewed ACC football games in history, maybe the highest. Usurping, I guess, probably Florida State Clemson, or one of the really good Florida State Miami games. But that's what this conference needs to do, man. And that's what's the beauty of this, is you're not hamstrung by the crappy Coastal. I mean, the Coastal has been a joke since this thing was invented. How many of the champions have come from the Coastal in the last, since 2011, 12? In the last 10 years, is it 9-1 Atlantic?
Yeah, it was really, because Pitt last year, really, that's it, right?
That's it, right? And the rest has been Florida State and Clemson. And most of them haven't even been competitive, and barely any of them have been watched. So at least now you have a chance where, say Florida State and Clemson play this year, It won't go into effect this year. But say they play this year, and it's hypothetical, folks. Florida State loses 31-30. Fitzgerald's kick just hits off the post. Just so close, everyone. It just hits off the post from 52. But anyway, but they both finished with 7-1 records or 6-2 records. Our Florida State finishes 6-2 in the ACC, and I don't know, Virginia Tech finished 5-3 or 6-2 in that division. What are people going to want to watch? And who are the two best teams in this league? And that's what you're trying to figure out. And I think Florida State Clemson rematches, Florida State Miami rematches, Miami Clemson, whatever it is. You've got to get your two best teams on that stage, because you don't have the luxury that the SEC has, where they have 7 really big football schools that all really care and that bring eyeballs, at least 5 or 6. That you have 2 really. Miami, when they're good, will bring eyeballs, but you really have 2 programs in this conference that bring eyeballs on a national scale. And the more chances you get for them to play each other, or to have a compelling game, and not just be the I know they're played after the SEC championship games, but nobody watches them or cares. They're afterthoughts. These wouldn't be afterthought games. These would be like, oh man, that was a great SEC game. Now let's buckle in for this really compelling ACC game. The rub you have, though, Aslan, and there is a rub, is you might have a team that's 12-0 and that's looking really good for a spot in the playoff. Clemson's already beaten Florida State once. It was close, but they already beat Florida State once. Wouldn't you rather them have an easier game to guarantee they get in the playoff, as opposed to Florida State coming and stealing their thunder and knocking them out of the playoff? That's the one thing that's the one con to this whole thing.
Well, I mean, that's kind of goes back to I'm kind of curious about you mentioning, if it's not going to be Georgia Tech, give Florida State maybe a more historically lower hanging fruit. And that's maybe a little bit of the issue too. Then it's like, all right, so Florida State, we want to have an easier guaranteed opponent, but then when it comes to conference, championship time, then we're cool playing a good team in that game. All right, we'll take the best shot from the conference when it comes to playing for the conference championship. But in the middle of the season, like if you could give us lowly Duke or Virginia, that'd be good. So.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of a contradiction there. I get it. I just think for the betterment of this conference and to maybe get more leverage with ESPN, a Florida State Clemson rematch just being on the table, should get you some more dollars. A Florida State Miami rematch, I guess that's never happened, but they're really compelling. A Louisville Clemson rematch being on the table is maybe enough leverage to get you a few more dollars out of ESPN.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, man, we've been there 5 times. Miami, you haven't held up your end of the bargain. Only made it there once. You didn't win it. You guys have never won it. So figure it out. Tighten up. By the way, so since 2005 when they went to this format where there's an actual championship game played, only Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech have won from the Coastal before Pitt did last season. So it was a good run there from 2011 to 2020. That was all Atlantic, or from 11 to 2020 rather. I'm sorry, all Atlantic.
But it's like, what is it, 13-4?
Yeah.
Right? Like Virginia Tech won it twice, I think.
Yeah, 5.
Georgia Tech won it once, and Pitt won it once.
Virginia Tech's won it 3 times. They won in 7 and 8, and then 10 when they beat us.
Okay, then Georgia Tech and Pitt. Okay.
Yeah. All right, moving along then. Good question, JT Noles 2K2. Appreciate you, man. Let's go to our guy in Naples. His name's Mark M. Adams, CZ. Morning and wake up. I'm totally in favor of getting rid of divisions and just scheduling with an emphasis on geographic location. That would make most sense, right, ACC? And Corey, Aslan, do you even know how the ACC came up with the current configuration of divisions? It literally seems random. Was the thought that FSU would likely win the Atlantic most years and Miami would win the Coastal most years, setting up that rematch in the conference championship game?
Yes.
Well, correct. Well, that has not happened once. Correct. If they keep divisions, trade Syracuse and Boston College for Georgia Tech and Miami. We're going to play Miami anyway. Heavens to Betsy, figure it out, ACC. At least Jim Phillips seems focused on logistical and logical improvement for football. Corey, do they even have a racetrack station in Tallahassee where you can go in and make a custom frozen yogurt with all the toppings? That was funny when Jeff said he wasn't afraid of the death trap gas stations that you despise. And you said those are your famous last words.
Yeah.
Classic. Appreciate you guys and go Noles. All right, I think there's a little bit of second thought in there. Hey, sorry to run it all into one sentence. Apologize, everybody. So I don't know if there's a racetrack in Tallahassee. I don't like racetracks either, really, but.
I don't know if there is one. I don't think so. If there is one, I haven't seen one. It hasn't caught my eye.
I think there's one on the west side of town, like by Capitol Circles. Yeah, I don't go to that side of town. So, all right, yeah. I mean, I don't know how random it seems. I mean, you got, most of the Carolina schools the Carolina schools are split up in there. But yeah, I would imagine that the entire thought process. I mean, it's 2005 when this happens. You're thinking Florida State's it's a blip. They'll be back on top and they'll rock and roll. And Miami's only 2-3 years removed from a great stretch of football. So yeah, let's go ahead and get these guys to play a really important game every December. And again, to Mark's point, it just never has happened. If they were to keep divisions. Does that make sense, you think? Like swap out Syracuse and Boston College into the Coastal and then bring Georgia Tech and Miami in?
I mean, sure, but I think that's a hypothetical we don't even need to worry about. I think that when they're talking about it so much, it's going to happen. And it needs to happen. They just need to scrap it. It's not – you don't have to do what the SEC does. You're a different brand. And you've killed your brand on Championship Saturday really since it started because of this. And you can – now it's a good idea. Like I get it why you did it at the time, and nobody could have known that Miami was never going to be anything ever. For 17 years now, man, you have not won one ACC title. You haven't even come close, honestly. So nobody could have known that.
38-3, their one appearance. They lost 38-3 to Kelly Bryant.
It wasn't even that close.
Yeah.
The score doesn't even reflect the difference there. So, I don't blame the ACC for doing what they did, thinking, okay, we can get Florida State Miami twice every year. I mean, that made perfect sense because there was really no reason to put Miami in the same division as Florida State because you knew they're going to play every year. So put them in the other division with the hope that they're playing twice a year, or at least 2 times every 5 years they're meeting in the ACC championship game, and literally Miami not really added much of anything to this conference yet. And that's a bummer, man, because when the ACC got Miami, they were 4 years removed from maybe the greatest college football team of all time. And 3 years removed from like a 30-game winning streak. And in 2003, they'd won the Orange Bowl. I think they'd lost once that year with Sean Taylor. I mean, they were incredible football teams. And then as soon as they got to the ACC, they plummeted into the earth. And have kind of starting to slowly climb out, but they have done so little for this conference that it's hard to really calculate how bad it's been. Like what it could have been if Miami would have stayed Miami, like they were around the turn of the century, and then that Florida State run came, and then that Clemson run came. Man, how much money would the ACC be making right now? And I'm not putting it all on Miami. There's other reasons. There's other factors. But they thought when they agreed to come to the ACC thought they were getting the preeminent college football program in the country, at least one of the top 3. And now it's not one of the top 20. Hasn't been for decades now, literally decades. But at the time, I don't blame the leaders at the time for putting Miami in the other division because you're like, man, this is going to be a financial windfall. We're going to get Florida State Miami twice. A lot with the ACC championship on the line. It'll be beautiful, and that's why we're going to have some of these games in Florida because it's going to be good for both fan bases to travel. Well, that didn't happen, and so now it's in North Carolina every year. But that's all because Miami has pretty much stunk since they got in the conference. Not that Florida State's been great since 2005, but they've certainly accomplished much more than Miami.
Corey, it's a Kane thing. We wouldn't understand.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
NYC _Nole_2. What's his avatar, Corey?
Charlie Ward.
Bam. Crushed it.
Nailed it.
Wake up, gentlemen. Corey Aslan, hope you're both enjoying the spring season. Up here in New York City, there's a definitive buzz in the air. The weather is T-shirts, shorts, sundresses, depending on your preference. And day drinking outside is the new weekend activity du jour. It's got to be fun, the brief summer that you do get up north. It really makes you appreciate it because of all the gray skies and cold you go through. But that's just, It's April. It's September. It's whenever down here.
Do the rats come out more when it gets warm? I assume they do, right? Like they want to experience the sun.
Yeah. There's puddles of water out there from the showers.
Yeah, for them to splash around in. Yeah.
2 quick thoughts. Scheduling, and then maybe a little bit bigger picture here. Number 1, choosing BC or Syracuse as a third perennial opponent would be a big mistake. No one in the Northeast cares or watches these programs, and even if the television at the bar happens to be on one of those 2 teams, it's a mistake and nobody is paying attention. I, New York City Nole 2, would much rather hop on a flight and meet you gentlemen in Atlanta than drive out to Syracuse. So we
Correct.
Got that. All right.
Please make that.
Noted.
I mean, I would be very, very upset with Alford because the way Ira was talking about his conversation with Alford and Alford talking about TV sets and wanting to broaden the brand. It's like, man, when are people going to figure out? And I don't know. Where is Alford from originally? Is he from Mississippi?
I'll research it. Maybe Alabama.
I don't remember where he was born. But when are people that matter going to figure out that nobody in the Northeast gives 2 blanks about college football? And they never will. So other than Penn State, quit trying to push it down their throats and quit trying to make it happen because it's not going to. It just won't. And it's fine. They have other interests. There's hockey. There's other things that they're into that's not as big in the South. But college football is never going to take off there. And having Syracuse and BC in the conference in general has added nothing, literally nothing. You see what these TV revenues are. I thought we were getting all those New York and Boston eyeballs. That should make the TV contract through the roof. Right. There's more people in New York City than there is Birmingham and, Oxford and Jackson. But why does the SEC making $50 million more a year per team for their TV? Oh, it's because people there care about watching the games, and nobody gives a flying F about college football in New York and Boston. And anyway, I'm off on a tangent. Sorry, gang. I'm ganging up on everyone. Miami,
the
Syracuse,
Northeast,
BC Rats. By the way, I'm a fan of New York City. That was just a joke. I do the rats are an issue though. Like I'm definitely afraid of rats, and that would be one of the weather and the rats are the 2 reasons I don't think I could live in New York. And also the cost seems outrageous. But man, because I remember I visited New York probably 5 times in my life.
You can walk
and the last
everywhere.
time I went,
you wouldn't have to drive either. You can just take a subway. You could walk.
Oh, I could walk. Yeah, it's great. But it's like I remember seeing. We were staying at the Plaza, which was a real fancy hotel because Shanna's friend worked there. Right out of Florida State, out of the hospitality program at Florida State. She got a job at the Plaza. It was awesome.
She hooked us up
with a suite. It was great. But that was the year that Shanna got on Letterman. But I remember walking back there at night, and this is a really fancy part of town and just seeing rats scurrying by the sewer. And it makes you like not even want to have an appetite. It's like, oh, and I don't know why rats get a bad rap, man. I don't know why they bother me so much.
They're disgusting.
I know, but they're trying to live. Rats and cockroaches, just tough.
They're disgusting. Yeah. My cursory research could not bring up anything definitive on Michael Alford's origin story, just that he attended Mississippi State but then transferred to UAB. No idea where he's born and raised.
But has lived a good part of his life at least.
A son of the South, yes.
In the South, and he has to know that they don't care up there. Yeah. So please, I hope he's not pushing. Let's get those Massachusetts eyeballs on our Seminoles. They do not care. They do. Most Boston fans, if they turn on the TV, wouldn't know which one's which, Boston College or Florida State. And that's a lot because the color schemes are similar. But they just wouldn't. They don't know. They don't care. They couldn't name you a Boston College player outside of Doug Flutie.
Mark Herzlich.
Yeah, maybe Herzlich. Maybe. But definitely Flutie.
Matt Ryan. Come on, man. Andre Williams.
Okay, sure.
What's our guy? Damian Woody. All right, I'll stop now. NYC Nole 2's second question. I wonder if administrators, coaches, sports media underestimate the half-life of college sports interests given the new NIL and transfer portal dynamics. We all agree players should be paid for their name, image, and likeness. but the combination in reality of these two is far more distasteful than even I had anticipated. When sophomores who had a good season at a middle-of-the-road ACC school are being treated like NBA free agents collecting offers from Alabama, Georgia, Texas, etc., and 16-year-olds are signing seven-figure contracts, the risk of killing the golden goose is far higher than most realize. Hopefully Jim Phillips, ACC commissioner, recognizes this and is working to take concrete steps to rectify the situation. As always, drink the Luna, hit the like button, and go Noles.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with any of that. It's going to be tough to navigate. And Dave Clawson on Wednesday at the meetings at Amelia Island came out and said that he's had players definitely tampered with. He's had schools call and contact his players that are still on scholarship or not in the portal. And I guess what I would say to that, and I believe him, just like I believe Norvell when he said it, start naming names.
Yeah.
You know, enough with the vague, in the broad, just the broad generalizations. Start naming names. Who contacted your players? Which schools? If you want to stop it, do you not want to stop it because you're doing it too? You know, if you're either part of the problem or part of the solution. I've heard that somewhere. But like, if it bothers you to a point that you're going to talk to the media about it, and it should bother you, they're your players and they're not in the portal. So why is, say, Nebraska reaching out to one of your players that's not in the portal? Okay, well, say, hey, yeah, John Smith, my offensive guard, Nebraska texted him 6 times last week. Say it. Put it out there.
I'm with you on that.
Start policing yourself.
Yeah.
Start policing yourselves if you have to.
And I wonder if that's a good point. I wonder if part of it's because you don't want to be looked at as being a hypocrite because maybe you're doing the same thing. But I would imagine you're not going to come out and say that if you're not, if you've been doing it. Why, that'd be weird if Dave Clawson was tampering with other schools and he comes out and says it himself.
Right.
I was looking this up. Scott Satterfield didn't come out and say it outright, but he said that he thinks there's kind of evidence that Alabama tampered with one of his guys. The
wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they get a wide receiver from them?
Yeah. So he'll probably be a first-round pick. So I guess thanks, Nick. It'll make it easier for us. So we appreciate it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, not that there's going to be any enforcement, but what's the harm in
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, what are you afraid you're not going to be able to get a job in Tuscaloosa on the Nick Saban rehabilitation program?
Right, and I think most people will be like, yeah, that's kind of screwed up, man. Explain this, Nick. Like, it's got to be text messages. Explain these text messages. Why did this kid get these text messages?
Right, has Narduzzi I don't know. I don't know if I've seen actual quote of it, but it seems like the headlines I've read, like he's said that USC tampered with Jordan Addison. I don't know if he's come. I think he made a phone call to Lincoln Riley, but I guess it'd be nice if Narduzzi actually did come out and say something directly. But that's a little better than nothing, though, I guess, right? At least having some smoke.
Yeah, I think the issue is going to be with the kids that do leave. Like, how are you going to get their text messages? Like, it just looks like sour grapes almost. They'll be like, no, they didn't. I wanted to leave. I contacted them, and you don't have any proof who initiated the contact. But if you have a kid that's just like fed up because this one school keeps trying to contact them, he's happy at Wake Forest, go get those texts, go get the screenshots, release them, and say, hey, Nebraska, Alabama, speak to this. What is this? Is this how you do business? Get that conversation out in the open, because tampering is going to be the worst part of all of it. It's one thing if a kid just isn't happy and wants to get in the portal. It's another thing if he gets recruited from another school he's already playing on. And that's where I think when he talks about distasteful, that is very distasteful. That's just not how sports has ever worked, man. You're on a team, at least for a full year. You're on that team. You don't play for that team, go through spring practice, and then somebody texts you and gets in your DMs and offers you $200K to leave right now, and okay, I guess I'm going to play there. That's never happened in sports typically, because usually, these athletes have had contracts that were binding.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, I think third parties there can be intermediaries that do reach out and try to help these kids figure out their next landing spots. Like if there's a high school coach, like if Jordan Addison's high school coach is friends with an analyst at Alabama, he can talk to Alabama on his behalf. It's just everything. That's the whole thing where then you want to fix these things that we could all agree this is a problem, and then you're like, we need to fix it. Then it's like, well, you're regulating it. You're staying in the way of the kids' opportunity, and it's like, all right, well then whatever. We'll watch it all burn together, everybody. We'll watch it all burn together,
Right,
and we'll
exactly.
enjoy it. All right, let's take this one and call it a day. BC Noles 16, wake up. What's your number one bucket list for FSU sports? It can be anything. A national championship for a particular program or success for a particular coach or player. Afterwards, go back to sleep. So, all right, we'll call it a day. It's easy for me. I mean, maybe you'd want to say Leonard. I mean, his career has been so long and illustrious, and if he could get a national championship, that really does change the entire conversation around him. But I want to see baseball win it all. With Martin, I'll put it this way: if Mike Martin Jr. isn't the guy that's going to win it, I'll put Ham on standby and I'll say let Leonard Hamilton win it. Like if Link Jarrett, let's say, comes here, it wouldn't have the juice for me as it would for Meat. It'd be cool to see the Martin family again. The vision I see in my face, in my head, in my mind's eye, is they got little box in box showing the game. Florida State needs one more out. They got Mike Martin Sr. in the stands with Carroll in the bottom of the screen. Then the other corners got Meat on the dugout, one step up, ready to charge the field. And they get the final out, strikeout.
Scalaro's on the mound.
Scalaro throws his glove up in the air.
Yeah.
They show Carroll hugging, 11. 11's all giddy, and you see Meat running out there, and he turns around and looks for his dad and points to his dad. Like I got chills just thinking about it right now, man. That's what I want.
I would say Leonard Final Four followed by baseball.
Ooh.
Those are my two. And it's neck and neck. It's close for all the reasons you just mentioned. But, I don't feel like Florida State ever got cheated out of anything. Like they've had plenty of opportunities in Omaha, 20 if I'm correct, or 21, whatever it's been. They've had plenty of chances to get out there and get on a run and win the darn thing. And they've had the best team in the country multiple times out there and didn't do it, didn't come through. Leonard's best ever team got cheated, didn't get a chance to go see what it could do, and that will always be a what if, and that's why I'd root for him to get one more chance to get back there.
Baseball Reference says 22. Wikipedia says 23. I feel it's like 23 appearances.
I think on the screen at Hauser it says 23, right?
Okay. I think see 23. Yeah, I can't see 22. I see 23 though. I can see it.
Okay, all right. By the way, can I take a minute? I've been meaning to do this for 2 weeks. I was at a baseball game. It was a TCU game. I was there for the whole. It was the game that they won, maybe the Saturday night game. They got down. Yeah, Montgomery pitched. They got down early, came back, and won it. And I just remember staring at that video board and being, what in the world are they doing with this thing? There is not a bigger waste of space in all of college athletics than what they're doing with that video board. That is a multi-million-dollar video board, Aslan.
It is.
Do you know what they show when, say, Jonas Scalaro is on the mound in the 7th inning facing the cleanup hitter for TCU? Do you know what's on the screen?
Just a cool photo of Jonas Scalaro with his name on it.
That's it. It's 2 stories high.
Yeah.
What in the world? Like, it's a baseball. It is such a numbers-driven game. You have all this, like, they in the press box, they'll tell us how far a home run went. They'll tell us launch angle. They'll tell us exit velocity. You can put all that up there. I don't need to see Jonas Scalaro's big face. And I like Jonah. Good pitcher. Been a great Seminole. I don't need to see his big face. I don't need to see Trayton Rank wearing a cowboy hat that takes up 2/3 of the screen. And they have the batting averages, which is a kind of 1990s stat anyway. They have the batting averages of everybody in the lineup going down the right, but they're small. You can't see them. It's a pretty old crowd. Don't know if you've noticed at Hauser. They're probably not seeing those batting averages. I can't see them. So that's pointless. And I would like to see, okay, look, Terrell is up. What's he hitting this season? Fine. How many home runs does he have? What's his slugging? What's he done in this game? No. I get a picture of Alex Terrell with a bat on his shoulder, taking up 2/3 of the screen. And also, how about this? No replays, ever.
Pretty much.
Ever.
Yeah.
Not replays of a home run, not replays of a great diving catch, nothing. When there's a call being reviewed, and those happen 9 times a game in college baseball, when there's a call being reviewed, don't show that. Just say big letters, play under review. But whatever. I mean, literally, I was talking to some buddies of mine, and they say it's a better experience to watch it at home because you get batting average, you get home runs, you get RBIs, you get slugging, you get what they've done in the game, you get exit velocity, you get distance of home runs. But on that scoreboard that has the space for all of it, you get a big fat picture of Jordan Carrion just standing there. Awesome. Great work. What was the money for that video board to just show batting averages? That's literally the only stats they show. Pitching, you want to know the pitching numbers of the guy no, don't worry about it. Pitch count, who cares? Just look at the cowboy hat that Trayton Rank is wearing and be happy. Anyway, I got that off my chest, so I'm glad I did.
That's been bubbling for some time.
Man, it is. I was enraged. I was just enraged looking at it like, what are y'all doing? You have this cool video board. Use it.
Oh, gosh. We got to almost go out on that. I wanted to come back real quick and think about the bucket list thing. Man, it'd be nice to beat Florida in a national championship game.
Oh, that is in anything.
Yeah, right. Well, you talk about like for a national title in any sport. I'm talking about football.
Yeah.
It'd be cool.
Oh, well, that would be great. But in anything, it would be great.
Like, what about I don't know, like beating Miami in the semi, or like beating Miami twice in a regular season. You know, beat him in the regular season, beat him in the ACC championship game, and then you somehow maybe get Clemson again in the playoff, and then you beat Florida for it all.
That's a long bucket list. I thought a bucket list is like one item. You just ran off like four things.
It's
on
a
that.
Season, though. I mean, I talked about, you win a season just running through these teams. They're like, to beat Bama, beat Georgia, beat all these guys to win it all, then take out Florida.
And honestly, our bucket list now needs to be 8 wins, man.
Right. Belk
Get
Bowl.
us to a bowl. Get us to a bowl in late December. That's the immediate bucket list. All-time bucket list. I still think I like our answers. Oh, I wanted to say other thing about the best Florida State moments. Nobody cares. It doesn't track. Because it's track. But you remember this guy because he was part of the Florida State Warchant trivia that you hosted. But Ngoni Makusha, whenever that was, 2010 maybe, he won the 100-meter dash and the long jump in the same NCAA championships. And the previous 2 people that had done that were Carl Lewis and Jesse Owens. So you're talking about an all-time accomplishment, like something that just does not happen. And that kid did it. And he'd only started running the 100 competitively like a month before that. And ended up posting like a 9.93 in the rain. And then always won the long jump because he was one of the best long jumpers in college history and finished 4th in the Olympics. Like literally, imagine this, Aslan. This was when he was still at Florida State. It was like the 2008 Olympics. He finished 4th in the long jump by like a 1/4 of a centimeter from finishing 3rd and getting a medal.
Cool.
That's rough. Now he's a coach somewhere. So always a real cool kid and incredibly fast. So that's another one.
Maybe we'll get him on the show sometime.
We should, man. I wonder if he'd remember me. He probably would. No, he probably wouldn't.
You're a memorable person.
I would hope. But that was a long time ago. He's been interviewed by a lot better people than me.
All right, that is a wrap for us, but we've got another show for you coming up on Friday, so do stay connected with us and warchant.com. In the meantime, wrapping things up from ACC meetings in Amelia Island. Do check out Tom Lang's Rating the Room, Ranking the Room, looking at the offensive line. That's up on the YouTube channel. Plenty to keep you focused and occupied, and then don't forget this weekend coming up the Miami series in baseball. So lots to look forward to. We'll be back in tomorrow, though. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thank you for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Corner Pocket Bar and Grill.